Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. It's almost a new year, 2022. Sorry about that. I accidentally hit my mute and I had to close out this Discord. But anyways, I just wanted to, recollect and think back. It's been this year has gone by so very fast, and we've done a lot of shows on the topic that we're going to be continuing this evening in our study on the book of Revelation, and how in this manuscript it does speak about the mark of the beast and what that particularly is. And a lot of people ask, and they ask whether it has any connection to the snake bite or technology. And I do believe it is, in my opinion, connected somewhat to artificial intelligence, and because of the aspect of controlling buying and selling, and coming up in a time when there is seemingly plenty, and then all of a sudden scarcity, and scarcity to such a degree that it seems like it takes a whole days of work just to get enough to eat and to get by. But the reason I bring all this up, and I'm going to have my son chime in as well as we continue on the study this evening, is because I saw just earlier today about what is the new Tesla phone. And I don't know if you guys and the audience out there know about what I'm talking about or have any inkling, but I did see to how the superiority of this particular phone, that it is mind blowing, the different aspects that are included within it, that you will even be able to charge it solar powered. And it is including all of the advancements in the technology that Tesla as a company has been involved in. And they're even talking about, which of course I don't buy this, but they're talking about how with their Starlink technology, that whenever they colonize Mars and set up a base there, that the Martian people, from Earth, will be able to use their phone and communicate with Earthlings here, just because of this technology. But anyways, the other aspect that I thought was very interesting, and then we'll move on, is that they have and are incorporating and seeking right now, doing research on what is a Neuralink. And this Neuralink is a chip and like cyborg technology that is implanted into your brain, and then allows you to utilize your phone with thought and with just your intent, rather than using your fingers or pushing on digits or anything like that. And when I saw this initially, I was like, that in my mind makes perfect sense, because it is embedded into your skull and connected to the front of your brain, and in a way that allows you to then utilize, again, your intent. And they've already have done research to where a monkey can play ping pong, something as simple as playing ping pong on a computer, just by using his thought. And they also have, I forget the other creatures, but they've implanted this into other creatures as well. And they are speaking about how very soon there will be human trials and how there are many people lining up ready to bend the knee and take on this mark, and become guinea pigs in this whole experimentations, just so that they can be able to link up to their phone and the internet and to Skynet in that particular manner. So anyways, I thought that was interesting. You can look it up, Tesla phone, as it will be coming out very, very soon from what I understand. Justin? Are you there, son?
I am, yeah. Sorry, I have to click a couple buttons before I can actually get unmuted. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no worries.
definitely something that we've covered quite a few times, in our current events and Bible
Yeah,
prophecy study, covering the things that was happening with Elon Musk and the whole Neuralink network and all the, I guess you would call it, all of their ingenuitive discoveries that they've made
hmm
throughout the past couple years, actually. And yeah, I know what you're
right.
talking about there. It wasn't ping pong, it was the game Pong that the monkey was able
Okay.
to play.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
literally a
yeah. That's
video game that he was able to
right,
play.
right,
And if you've ever played Pong, it's
right.
just you have a little paddle on one side and your opponent has a paddle on the other side, and there's a ball that bounces back and forth, just like ping pong, but it's all digital. And normally you have to use a joystick and you just press up or down. And the goal is to not let the ball get past you. So you're moving your little paddle up or down in order to prevent the ball from getting past you. And what they found out was that they can actually map the monkey's brain by basically discovering which synapses were firing in the brain
Yeah,
when the monkey was making an upper movement and which were firing when he was making a downward movement. And they were able to basically map the intentions of the monkey to the point where they didn't even need him to have a joystick anymore.
right.
They were able to read, okay, well, these neurons are firing, so that means the monkey is intending to do this. So they disconnected the controller, and he actually was performing better than when he had to utilize his,
Wow.
reflexes, because there's a little delay between, your arm getting the signal that your brain sends it and it actually, you sending it. So there's a little bit of a delay, but with this technology, I guess there was no delay. It was just immediately when they saw the intention through the firing of those neurons, they were able to make that reaction in the game. And yeah, it's all done through technology, and totally weird. It's totally weird that those things are really, really happening in our generation. I think that it's
hmm
super creepy, but it shouldn't surprise any of us, right? We all knew that there's something, that even more technology is going to come out. That's just
Right.
the beginning. We're just seeing the infrastructure of the mark of the beast be established. So yeah,
Yes, yes.
it's going to be really interesting to see how it continues to unfold and develop. And yeah, we know that all of the digital currency, everything is all working together to bring
Right.
about this whole deception, and what mankind is going to see as a really great thing, you know.
Yes, convenience and uh, having all of your data on this one little chip to where you don't even have to have it, as a separate file or even on a different hard drive. It's just completely incorporated into something that is, bio, like cyborg technology. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, they call it
absolutely.
BMI. brain machine interface. So yeah, you see the technology. It's really crazy. But what did you say something about the like a Tesla phone? Is that what you said was coming?
Yeah, the Tesla phone. It's said to be superior to the Apple iPhone, and it has this battery that lasts for a week. You can charge it by solar, because they have the solar panel technology as well, and it also charges quickly, like in a minute's time. You can fully charge it if necessary. But yeah, and the Neuralink is what is going to be incorporated into this phone so that people can utilize it to perform. And it says that Elon Musk is currently also developing his own chips that when they had the supply strain, that rather than depend on or allow themselves to be pinched by the shortage, that they went ahead and created and are now creating these chips that are even superior to what is on the market. And so the company as a whole is moving in many different directions and is, incorporating all of this into the phone, because he basically, when he did the show with Joe Rogan, he spoke about how the cell phone is like your artificial intelligence brain, that you can
Yeah.
utilize it to search for any information, any piece of knowledge, just by Google searching. You can come up with an answer immediately on anything. Look up, calculate, find out whatever it may be, that once they can incorporate it into being an extension of your brain, which it already is. It's just not, you know, placed into the body and connected as a neural link, a neural net, hooking you up to the internet yet. But all of that is coming, and he spoke about how he wanted to achieve this and to make that happen. And well, it seems like he's already taken the first steps to make this a possibility and give people that as an option. So,
Hmm.
yeah, very creepy.
Yeah,
But anyways,
really good point. So
whenever,
we had a
yeah,
question from the chat from Carols of Joy. They said, "Do you think this could be part of the first seal when we're allowed this time of prosperity once the swamp is cleared?" I'm not really sure what the timing exactly of the Mark of the Beast implementation will be, but I don't think that that's going to be until maybe a little bit later on. But that I could see that making a little bit of sense since some people are not able to die during the whole tribulation period, right? And people are going to
hmm,
want to die and not be able to die. So
right,
potentially this technology is going to reach that fake form of invincibility, right?
right,
The
and it
fake
will peak,
immortality.
yeah, peak sometime during and with the rise of the Antichrist. And
Hmm.
I think even now we are seeing, and we are in a period where there's been great, um, as far as wealth and provision, and that we are moving towards perhaps that artificial scarcity, because they are, the government right now is even paying farmers to destroy their crops and not even allowing them to give them away to people in need, to make them available for, the homeless or other countries that may be in need of um, whatever it is that they are destroying. And it's, a lot of different things across the board. Uh, meat and milk and food crops, grains and corn and a lot of things. Um, it's a lot does have to do with this supply crunch and that there's no drivers, and then with the whole theme of mandating that people have to have their records as far as their the having been snake bitten, all of that in place before they can even work for government or cross uh, state lines or travel back and forth between countries. All of this is really challenged the economic systems of the world, and so things are even now adapting. And so I think again, a lot of that is putting a pinch on the normal way that supply and demand has worked over the years. And so there's a whole new system being set up and put into place, and all that is still really being worked out. So
Yeah, talking about shortages and talking about Elon Musk, Joy and I saw this new movie that came out. It was called Don't Look Up. Have you seen that, or have you heard about it?
um I think I saw something about it, but I don't know exactly what it was
Mm.
about, and I don't recall the details of that.
Okay, well, we saw it last night, and there were definitely some parts that you don't want to see. You got to keep your remote ready to fast forward. But the premise of the whole movie was really interesting. They found an asteroid or a comet that was heading towards the Earth, and and I was telling Joy, I think one of the main characters is the third richest guy that's on the Earth, and he owns this company called Bash Cellular. And I was like, oh, I really think that is like got to be similar to Elon Musk. But Elon Musk doesn't really mess with cell phones. So when you said that he's coming out with a whole cellular thing, I was like, oh wow, that's
Oh,
so weird.
wow.
So,
Wow.
anyways, the premise of the movie is that there's this asteroid heading towards the Earth, and the scientists that discover it and this president, they decide to use NASA to send nukes up there and blow it off
Mhm.
course. And they
Oh,
launch
okay.
they launch successfully all of these like old satellites and shuttles with nukes. Then they're supposed to go up to the asteroid, kind of like the old Armageddon movie, right? And
Right.
launch and blast off these nukes in order to try to change the trajectory. But as soon as they
Hmm.
take off successfully, they turn around and they come back to the Earth. And it's definitely spoiler alert. I apologize for anyone who hasn't seen it. But basically the rich dude, he decides he finds out that on this comet that's heading towards the Earth, that they call it a planet killer, that there are all these rare minerals that he needs in order to keep manufacturing his cell phones and technology and stuff. So
Mm.
so he decides that he wants to try to launch a mission to mine those things. So, talking about scarcity, I won't spoil the entire thing for everyone. But, but it's really interesting, that I guess there won't be enough for everyone. What do you think? It seems like there is definitely a shortage for a lot of different things, and a lot of it is manufactured. I definitely think the famine in the world is a completely manufactured event.
Yeah, it's
It's
artificial.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that we all are taught to grow grass instead of grow food in our
Yeah.
yard, and that it's
Right. Right.
illegal in some places to grow food
Right.
is absolutely insane.
It's insane. Exactly. And the fact that we get power from wires and from power plants rather than have solar panels on every house all across,
Hmm.
the earth. And then the whole thing, as far as wind and those kind of technologies should certainly be utilized as well. Even the way that in ancient times, utilizing water, and how they had the water wheels, all that. But yeah, scarcity is something that is artificial and created, and even the way that um, there's warehouses full of diamonds out there, and diamonds are not even rare; they're semi-precious. But yet, because they control the supply and the demand, um, and they inflate the demand by creating all of your wedding rings, and then Valentine's and Christmas, and diamonds are forever, and women diamonds are a woman's best friend, all that kind of stuff. They create this demand, and then they release the supply to meet with that demand, and they create this multi-million dollar, billion-dollar industry off of, so yeah, things are inflated, things are created, scarcity is um, implemented when necessary to control or to cull the masses. Economic crises are, the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. It's all a charade, all the world's a stage.
Yeah, definitely. Christian Lord said in the YouTube chat, and I want to welcome everybody that's joining in the chat. It's awesome to see you all again tonight. To continue our Revelation study, Christian Lord said the asteroid will be fake, but there are certain organizations, intelligence organizations, that can utilize these types of events in order to, push forward an agenda that has to do with globalism. And that's absolutely the truth. That most of these events are all on the Illuminati playing cards.
Right.
They're just events that there was this game called Sim City. I don't know. Did you ever hear of that one?
Yeah, huh?
It was
Where
a
you
really old
create
game. Yeah.
civilizations. Yeah.
You kind of like you create cities, and then there's an option that you have in order to like make alien invasions, or like to have, just a fire or a tornado, just to like kind of shake up your city a little bit. But, they use these same types of things in the real world in order
Hmm.
in order to push forward their agenda, and maybe even sometimes because the elites are bored. They
Right.
just look at us like we're just pawns in a game, and they want to manipulate us and do manipulate us. They pit us against one another to hate one another. They teach us all these stupid things, and they just laugh at us, especially with Hollywood and all the music industry. There are all these songs out there that like make people walk around just like woof woof woof, or like they say like the stupidest things in these songs, and people bite into it, and they walk around like barking like dogs, or like it's I'm sure that they're just laughing at us, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they get great fun out of hiding things in plain sight, and then laughing at us, and um, poking
Hmm.
fun at us, and look at how stupid the people are, and how could they believe this, believe
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, Elena Johnson mentioned in the chat that they're forcing corporations to go green, and that's a whole nother. I don't think that one's
Part of the
for
agenda.
their entertainment. That one is definitely one that they're utilizing to gain control. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah,
Did you
absolutely.
see the new?
Carbon taxes.
Yeah, there's a new law trying to get passed in New York City where they can indefinitely detain people for refusing to do the hokey pokey.
Really.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me.
Isn't
My
that
goodness,
insane?
it is insane.
You know, the Nuremberg codes say that you shouldn't coerce people to take
Uh-huh.
a medicine that they don't want to take. But
Yeah.
now, you know, if you threaten someone that they're going to lose their job if they don't do something, or that they're going to go to prison if they don't take a medicine, that's pretty coercive, I think.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
now it's government policy,
I mean,
under guise of
yeah, it's just
the
like
war on terrorism.
morality is like old timey, like tradition, right? Like morality is
Hmm.
just kind of like outdated. And I think that that's the same way they look at like all of these laws and these rules that we figured out and put in place because of
Right.
things
Tyranny.
like Nazi Germany.
Right.
And we're just
No,
kind of
rights and
forgetting those
freedoms,
things.
those, that's pre 9/11. We're in the post 9/11 world now.
Hmm.
You are guilty until proven innocent. And the
Hmm.
government has the rights to take your children from you if you don't do what they say. And I mean,
Hmm.
it's insane. This is
Yeah, yeah,
totally
no doubt.
Orwellian.
Yeah, I forget where it was. I think maybe in Canada or somewhere. Definitely like all over the world. There are just huge amounts of people that are standing up against the tyranny, right? You don't see it
Hmm.
on social, or you don't see it on mainstream media
American, yeah,
because
media.
they don't want that. But
Mm-mm.
it is definitely happening, especially I think it was in Canada that they started raiding churches and shutting down churches, and you're just like, if you try to follow the logic, there is no logic to it. You know, in Israel, they're like the most highly dancing population. You know, they have introduced the snake bite to as many people as possible, and everyone, is like mostly everyone has kind of surrendered to that and started doing the hokey pokey dance. But still, now they're suggesting a fourth dance. And
Hmm.
with you
New
know
round.
people with the moronic mutation, they have some people are still passing away even after doing all of these dances. You're just like,
Hmm.
it really doesn't make sense. It's not like it prevents transmission. It's not like it prevents you from getting the thing. I just don't
Hmm.
follow the logic. It's just a play. It's like an act just to get power for the Illuminati. I don't know how anyone could just not like clearly see it. And I think that most of the people do see it. But I guess in America we're just like too comfortable. I don't know. And I guess
And complacent.
yeah, we're just comfortable and complacent and I just pray that this whole administration doesn't keep going the way that it's going. I just feel like, hundreds of years of slowly losing our freedoms, and this is like fast forwarding the movie. It's like going faster and faster, and you see the things in the scriptures, and you think, oh, please, please, just like not in my children's generation, please, like let them have
Yeah.
some peace. But
I
I
know.
don't know how long we have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always my prayer to you. And I pray, especially for your generation, and even for Eliana's.
Hmm.
I just wish that none of this would come to pass, and that everything would stay um, peace and
Hmm.
good, and non-violence, and just
Right.
non-insanity. But it
But
is
yeah,
prophetic.
now you know that it's illegal to be a healthy human being. It's
Right.
totally crazy. But what do you say we get into the reading?
Yeah, let's do.
So we're going to get into Revelation chapter 7. And let's see, that there's only 17 verses, so maybe we'll get through a couple chapters tonight. Let's see. So
All
we'll start
right.
off. Revelation 7, verse 1. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. All right, so this, we have to follow the timing, right? You know, when John wrote this, there wasn't like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. This was just kind of
Right.
like
All together.
in order. And in this one, it says, and after these things would be after the opening of the 6 seals. So now, after the opening of the 6 seals, we see 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. Some people say this is the 4 quarters of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. So, what is your take on this verse?
Um, it's my opinion that in the time when we have the reign of the Antichrist, it speaks about in many different manuscripts that the rains will be held back. And I think, that the rains are part of what generates and creates the storms. And it speaks about how there will be a period of even 42 months, or, I don't know if it's the full portion of what is the Great Tribulation. And because I think that the reign of the Antichrist is a 42-month, 3.5-year cycle. And, I don't know as to where the catching away of the church happens, and, how all that exactly plays out, whether it's near the beginning when the Antichrist is fully comes to power, because it does speak about how when that man of sin is revealed, that Enoch and Elijah come forth and to convict him. And I actually took out a passage, and this is a great place to share this. This is from the Gospel of Nicodemus, and this is when Christ went down into Sheol and had brought Adam and his generations, even the thief on the cross, was sent to paradise and to wait for the return of Christ with Adam and his descendants. And then they enter into New Jerusalem, and then they meet Enoch and Elijah, and they tell them as to what their mission, their future mission is. But it says this real quick. Then the Lord, holding Adam by the hand, delivered him to Michael, the archangel, and he led them into paradise, filled with mercy and glory. And 2 very ancient men met them, and were asked by the saints, who are ye, who have not yet been with us in hell, and have had your bodies placed in paradise? One of them answering said, I am Enoch, who was translated by the word of God. And this man who is with me is Elijah the Tishbite, who was translated in a fiery chariot. Here we have hitherto been, and have not tasted death, but are now about to return at the coming of Antichrist, being armed with divine signs and miracles, to engage with him in battle, and to be slain by him at Jerusalem, and to be taken up alive again into the clouds after 3 days and a half. And while the holy Enoch and Elias were relating this, behold, there came another man in a miserable figure, carrying the sign of the cross upon his shoulders. And when all the saints saw him, they said to him, who art thou? For thy countenance is like a thief's. And why dost thou carry a cross upon thy shoulders? To which he answering said, Ye say right, for I was a thief, who committed all sorts of wickedness upon the earth. And the Jews crucified me with Jesus. And I observed the surprising things which happened in the creation at the crucifixion of the Lord Jesus. And I believed him to be the creator of all things and the Almighty King. And I prayed to him, saying, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. He presently regarded my supplication and said to me, Verily I say unto thee, this day thou shalt be with me in paradise. And he gave me the sign of the cross, saying, Carry this and go to paradise. And if the angel who is the guard of paradise will not admit thee, show him the sign of the cross, and say unto him, Jesus Christ, who is now crucified, has sent me hither to thee. And when I did this and told the angel who is the guard of paradise all these things, and he heard them, he presently opened the gates, introduced me, and placed me on the right hand in paradise, saying, Stay here a little time, till Adam, the father of all mankind, shall enter in with all his sons, who are the holy and righteous servants of Jesus Christ, who was crucified. And when they heard all this account from the thief, all the patriarchs said with one voice, Blessed be thou, O Almighty God, the Father of everlasting goodness, and the Father of mercies, who has shown such favor to those who were sinners against him, and has brought them to the mercy of paradise, and has placed them amidst thy large and spiritual provisions, in a spiritual and a holy life. Amen. And so, again, it says that when the Antichrist comes to power, we see that Enoch and Elijah are killed in the streets of Jerusalem, as they said here, that they were preserved from death to be the two witnesses of Revelation 11. And they, I think symbolically are left there in the streets 3.5 days, which I believe is symbolic of the 3.5 years, the 42 months, that the Antichrist openly rules over what is the New World Order, the Beast Kingdom, the United Nations, and what Daniel sees as, that Beast Kingdom that comes to power. But, it's the same thing with regard to the winds being held back and the rains not allowed to fall. When I read from the Revelation of St. John, the theologian, it also speaks about a time when the rains being held back for so long. And I, also spoke about how this was connected to the geoengineering, the chemtrails, and all of that, that the earth became brazen and that the land became like iron, rock hard, from there not being any liquid. And there are other manuscripts that speak about how those that are left here that are of the, of the wicked, and those not written into the books of life, that they will dig deep into the grounds, into the earth, seeking water, and will not find it. That water will become so scarce in that time that people will be drinking blood just to try to get, some nourishment, and to appease their thirst.
Interesting. Well, that definitely doesn't work. I've seen some survival shows that people who drink blood do not get their thirst quenched. They actually become more thirsty. But anyways, that wasn't
We
really
don't
the
want to
point,
do that.
right?
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
We're not supposed to drink any blood, anyways.
No. Right.
But yeah, just going back to the scripture, the one verse that we covered,
One whole verse.
right? Yeah, it's a beautiful reading, the Gospel of Nicodemus, and a good point that Enoch and Elijah maybe we can talk about them more once we get to the
when
two
we get there.
witnesses.
Yeah. Right.
But according to what's going on here, you see that the four angels standing on the four corners of the earth are holding the four winds of the earth. So there are four winds of the earth. There are four corners or quarters of the earth. And at this point, there's a pause. And then in verse 2 it says, "And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead." So apparently these four angels are getting ready to hurt the earth and the sea. And right before this happens, there is a seal going out. A seal
Right.
that is going out to the servants of God. And this is clearly a counter to what is the mark of the beast being in the forehead.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't think that this is a technology thing.
Right.
But I think, what is it? It's in like Ezekiel 3 that talks about the rider with the inkhorn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what I'm talking about? Let me look it up, because this is important. Yeah, sure. And Ezekiel 9. Okay, Ezekiel 9 talks about a man that's going up, and let's just go ahead and read this. "And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which led to the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. And the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub whereupon he was to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. And Yahuwah said to him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And to the others he said in mine hearing, Go ye after him through the city, and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary." Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house, and he said unto them, Defile the house, and fill the courts with the slain. Go ye forth. And they went forth and slew the city. And it came to pass, while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried, and I said, O Adon Yahuwah, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? And then he said unto me, The iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of perverseness. For they say, Yahuwah has forsaken the earth, and Yahuwah sees not. And as for me also, mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense their way upon their head. And behold, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter, saying, I have done as thou hast commanded me. So we see this man clothed in linen that has an inkhorn is sent in order to seal up the foreheads of those who cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. And I think that this is an interesting passage that correlates with Revelation chapter 7, especially because this is talking about being in Jerusalem. So, right now you have people that say they are Jews but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, that are in Israel. But you also have real blood Israelites that have made Aliyah back to Israel and are living there. You have Torah observant Jews, you have Messianic Jews, but then of course you have the synagogue of Satan, and there is a lot of evil that is done in Jerusalem, and there are a lot of people that are crying against the Talmud. There are a lot of Messianic Jews who cry against all of the blasphemies that are contained therein. And apparently, according to Revelation chapter 7, let's go back over here, there are going to be 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel that are sealed in this time. So another really interesting point in Ezekiel chapter 9, that was clearly there was a temple established in that chapter, right? So potentially that already happened. Either that prophecy has already happened where the forehead was sealed up, and then the destroyers were sent out. Weird enough, it says that there were 6 in Ezekiel 9, and there's only 4 angels here in Revelation 7 that are going to be given power to hurt the earth and the sea. But I don't know, potentially even in the future, in 2 Thessalonians 2, we're told that the Antichrist is going to sit in the temple of God, claiming to be God. So either this is a spiritual allegory to, what's happening in Jerusalem is actually what's happening in the hearts of the church. I could see that, like, that symbolic meaning that, the temple of God is actually our bodies, right? And that the Antichrist is going to seat himself in our bodies. A lot of people believe that the mark of the beast is like the Antichrist sitting in the temple of God. I don't know. I mean, that potentially that's correct, but potentially, also in the end time, according to Daniel at least, the Antichrist is going to stop the daily sacrifice. So potentially what we're going to see in Israel is a continuation or a resuming of the temple service. First, of course, a rebuilding of an altar, at least, which we've seen a rebuilding of the altar. We've seen a high priest anointed in Israel. We've seen the Sanhedrin reestablished. We've seen them make sacrifices for Pesach and many different sacrifices next to the Temple Mount, or where they believe is the Temple Mount. So potentially it's already there, potentially it's already going to happen. You're going to be watching YouTube, during Pesach one day, or during the Feast of Trumpets, or sometime, and all of a sudden, when they offer this sacrifice to an altar, you're going to see, Satan, like, disguised as the man of peace, come and finish that sacrifice and say that, no need to sacrifice anymore. I'm doing away with your sacrifices, and by the way, I'm your God, so worship me. Potentially you could see that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. It even tells us that, judgment begins in the house of the Lord. And we see that being played out here as well. And I think that, that before the wrath of God is poured out on the wicked and those not written into the books of life, that there is a spiritual mark of Yahuwah that is placed into the foreheads of the people of God, and that this spiritual mark is one that the angels are able to see, and that helps them to determine who is his true sheep and who aren't. And so there's a recognition there, and there's the declaration that these are my people, these are my elect, these are my righteous ones. And so there's again the harvest, and even though we know that the harvest will be after Yahushua takes the judgment seat, I think that this episode and this, as far as the mark of the Father Yahuwah being placed on the people in preparation for what is the catching away, and also the wrath, the great and terrible day of the Lord, that we're seeing all that play out as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So definitely.
Trixie True, thank you for the comment. Trixie True made a really good point that sacrifices are our prayers. Yeah, definitely. David made that very clear in the Psalms, that a daily sacrifice, or our prayers, are sacrifices. So, we've definitely mentioned that before, and potentially, as she says here, the Antichrist could stop prayers with mind control. So, maybe the people who receive the mark of the beast are no longer, I don't know how the technology works. Dr. Joy talks about it all the time with the pineal gland. Something could cut you off from being able to pray, but I'm not really sure. I don't think there's no type of technology that could prevent God from knowing your thoughts and knowing,
Right.
when you are directing your thoughts to him.
Right.
Yeah, but like you said, mind control, I don't really know. As far as mind control goes, I know that people do get possessed and lose their minds. Potentially technology could replicate that. I guess we'll find out. But Jamali said, "What's in your head? The brain. Use it and seal up the knowledge of the Antichrist and when he will be here." Yeah, and I don't know if I've ever shared. I think I've shared my interpretation of the seal of the living God. Later on, we see in Revelation. Let me see if I can find the exact verse. We see the seal of the living God is actually the name of the Father. Let me see. It says that they're sealed up with his name. I want to talk about that. But I want to look. I'm trying to find the verse. But you can find that. It's in Revelation. It says that they were sealed up with the Father's name in their foreheads. Hang on. I gotta find the verse so I'm not being heretical.
We are almost to break anyways,
Okay.
so we'll just make a few minutes of
Revelation
commentary.
14. Yeah, so all right, here it is. Revelation 14:1, and this is also talking about the 144,000. It says, "And lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000." Same thing as Revelation 7, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. So what is the Father's name? We talked about this 100 times, not 100 times, but dozens of times. The Father's name is Yod He Vav He.
Yeah.
And it is literally a prophecy of the Messiah. So in my opinion, having the name of the Father sealed in your forehead is having the faith of the life, death, and resurrection of our Creator, of the Messiah, who is the infinite Creator incarnate. So, in my opinion, that having the Father's name written in our foreheads is having faith in the Messiah and his whole testimony. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think that the Israelites here that you see, the 144,000 from all the 12 tribes, there are a couple tribes that are left out there. Maybe we can talk about that when we come back. But yeah, from 12 tribes, you see they are sealed with the Father's name in their forehead. I believe these are Messianic Israelites. I don't believe there are Talmudic Israelites.
Right.
The people who reject the Messiah, I don't believe that there will be any of these people spared. I believe some people might be woken up in the end times. But yeah, I definitely believe those who reject the faith of the Messiah have been cut off so that the Gentiles could be grafted in.
Yes, I agree. And we talked about this last night in the the AMA that we had. This was one of the questions that came up in regard to the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and how this was one of the differentiations was the Talmudic Jews, the synagogue of Satan, and the Torah observant Messianic Jews that know and accept Christ as Savior and Messiah. But we have arrived to break, everybody, and so we will be back for a second hour, and we'll go into it further, and hopefully we'll make it through this chapter, which I think we will.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
Hello friends, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet, not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. For a second hour, and we will continue with our introspection of the book of Revelation. We are on chapter 7, I believe. I'll turn it back over to you, son.
All right. So, yeah, we are on chapter 7, and we've been talking about the seal of God and the 4 angels that stand on the 4 corners of the earth that hold the 4 winds of the earth. And now we're moving into who are the servants of God that are sealed in their foreheads. So we covered from Ezekiel chapter 9, and then we had a really good point from Jamali in the chat. They were talking about Ezekiel 37 also mentions the 4 winds, and that is very true. Ezekiel 37, the winds are mentioned as the ones that are sent out in order to give life, basically to do the resurrection. So I think that's interesting comparison to what we're told in Matthew and Mark when the Messiah commands at his return his 4 angels to go to the 4 corners of the earth and to raise up and to gather all of the elect. And, this is definitely the harpazo or the resurrection or both together because they do happen, immediately, simultaneously, as we're told in 1 Thessalonians 4. The resurrection occurs, and then immediately after the resurrection, the harpazo occurs when those who are still alive and remain are caught up with them in the clouds. So, yeah, really interesting point. Not totally certain how that fits here. I guess, we talked last week about these 4 angels, a lot about the 4 angels, and we brought up Zechariah and talked about the 4 horsemen, the 4 horns that were sent out to, scatter Israel is what it was called. So you see kind of that same theme here when we were reading in Ezekiel 9 that they're not called horsemen, but they're called the six guys that were sent out with destroying weapons that went through Jerusalem and slaughtered except for those who were sealed. So you see the same thing is kind of occurring here. Those 4 horns are at it again. They're getting ready to hurt. They're getting ready to hurt the earth and the sea. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. Well, let's go through real quick. I'll just read this off. Revelation 7:4-8. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of Israel. So it says all the tribes of Israel, but you'll notice here that the tribe of Dan is missing. It says of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Naphtali were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. So here I put a little chart up on the screen. I'll share my screen with you also, Dad, so you can see that. But yeah, we noticed that the tribe of Dan has been replaced with the tribe of Manasseh, which was one of Joseph's children. So a lot of people point this out. Manasseh was the child of Joseph and Asenath, who was the daughter of Dinah. And we know Dinah was raped by a Hivite.
Hamor,
who was Hamor. And so Manasseh would have part of this blood, which would be Hamite blood. So, in the same manner, part of Canaanite blood, Kenite blood. So this is a really important point. I think somebody commented on one of your YouTube videos this week, just yesterday, talking about how the scripture says that all of the children of Cain, all the descendants of Cain are, damned from the moment they're born. But this scripture alone, Manasseh, being a child that has some of this blood, should point out to you that that's not the truth. That even some of the descendants of Cain and people with some blood of Cain would be saved. So, and how do we?
I think Christ redeemed us all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Gabriel said, doesn't Manasseh have some relation to Ephraim? So they were brothers.
Right.
So as we said, in my opinion at least, the seal of the living God, as we saw in a later chapter, was the name of the Father. And this is the prophecy of the Messiah, the saving work of the Messiah, by which all of us are saved, because none of us were found worthy. None of us were found perfect enough. That's why Yahuwah says, my own arm has brought salvation. So, yes. If you want to learn more about his arm, read Isaiah 53. It says, to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? And you will read there a full prophecy of the Messiah and his betrayal. But the Israelites are now sealed, I believe, by that same faith. I don't think no one has ever kept the Torah so perfectly that they were saved by their own righteousness. I can't, say that 100% certain, but I'm fairly certain that no one except for the Messiah has been perfect. I guess Enoch truly pleased the Most High, and he was taken. I suppose Elijah as well truly pleased the Most High, and he was taken. Noah was spared. Abraham was chosen, and protected, but no one was saved by doing the works of the Talmud. We've only been the works of the Torah. We've only been saved by the grace of the Most High. And those who come to know that and trust in the salvation that the Messiah has purchased for us, I believe that is how we receive that seal. Also, according to Ezekiel 9, it says, those who cried out against the abominations that were done in Jerusalem. Maybe it's as simple as that. They cried out against the abominations that were done in Jerusalem, so they were sealed in their foreheads. All right, so let's keep going. And then after this, after we see the 144,000, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and worshipped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
So we see everything that we've seen so far from the throne. We see the four beasts, we see the elders, we see the angels that stood around about the throne, and now we also see a great multitude which no man could number. And they sing a beautiful song. blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple, and he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. So this is interesting. Remember where we are in the timeline of Revelation, right? We just saw that the sixth seal was opened up, and the moon became as blood, and the sun stopped giving its light. It says it became black as a sackcloth of hair. The stars of heaven fall to the earth, and the heavens depart as a scroll. Every mountain and island are moved out of their place. The kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. And they were saying, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the Lamb, the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So we see this happens as soon as the sixth seal is opened. And now after this, we see the 144,000 are sealed. So to me, it makes sense that what is getting ready to happen, as we saw with all of the rich men trying to hide themselves in the earth, they said they were trying to hide from the wrath of the Lamb. So now we see, after the sixth seal is opened, the wrath of the Lamb is getting ready to be poured out. And the Lamb, of course, executes the wrath of God. He is the body through which Yahuwah will execute his wrath on the earth. So before his wrath is sent out, we see the Israelites are sealed up. But then we see a ton of believers that were already taken up and are already sitting in the throne, at the throne room. So this begs the question, after the four angels were holding the four winds of the earth, they were sent out to hurt the earth, right? But we also know that they were commissioned to gather the elect.
Right.
So are all these individuals, was this after the rapture? Did the rapture just happen? Did the resurrection just happen? And this is everyone that was saved except for those Israelites who were left behind and sealed with the seal of God? It's an interesting question, right?
Yes. Yes, definitely something to consider. And I do believe there is a finality to that moment when it occurs, and that, as I have stated before, that when that door is closed, that the hope for those that are left behind is gone.
Yeah, good point. So I think this is just really interesting. We always say there's so far and few between that will actually be saved, right? But I just find it so comforting to know, because I'm not perfect by any means, that there is a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, of all kindreds, of all people and tongues, that stand before the throne and before the Lamb, and that they're clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. So we saw this previously, when the fifth seal was opened. We saw that there were some people that were given white robes, right? And those were the ones that were martyred already. And
Right.
they cried out and they said, how long until you execute vengeance? And then they were given white robes. But now we see everyone has been gathered together and they've been given white robes as well. So
Right.
interesting. Maybe this is, a good plot to put on your timeline. As soon as the sixth seal is opened, as soon as all those events occur, then you see there are Israelites that are sealed. It doesn't say that they're taken up. It says that they're going to be protected through the wrath of God. And then you see that there is a great multitude. It doesn't say exactly, these are who they are, but there's a great multitude. I can only guess or hypothesize that these are believers that were resurrected
Yes.
and raptured. But what's really interesting, and I guess this kind of answers my question, in Daniel, we're told that there are individuals that are going to make it until the Messiah returns, and they're still going to be walking in their flesh bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to see, well, according to Zechariah, there are going to be Israelites that see the Messiah when he returns. And they're, in Zechariah 12, it says they're going to look upon me whom they have pierced. And they're going to mourn
Mm-hmm.
for him as one mourneth for their only son. So, these Israelites that are crying out against the abominations that are being done in Jerusalem, they are sealed with their father's name. So potentially these 144,000, when the Messiah returns, then they'll wake up and then they'll see the truth that they've been sealed with, the testimony of the Messiah. Potentially not. That's just, one way to interpret this. What's your take on the role and all the 144,000?
Well, it says that they're virgins, and so they either have to be prophets or young people that may have died, early in their life. But we do see that there is a place for the children in heaven, and that they are very important to the Most High, that they are cared for, and so do they have a role to play in this? I don't know, but again, with the catching away and the judgment, when Christ does come and take the judgment seat, and I do believe that the catching away, the rapture, that that is the final, that's the closing, and then the wrath of God is poured out on the wicked, and it's described as a great and terrible day of the Lord. But there are other manuscripts as well, like the Apocalypse of Thomas, that describes the playing out of the wrath of God over a course of 7 days, or a period of time that is like a week. And so and who knows, I mean, it could be like that 7 days is counted as one day. I don't know exactly, but I do believe that when the church is gathered, put into the air, that this is when, and that those that are gathered will watch with all those that are together with the Most High. I mean, with Christ in the clouds, the wrath of God and poured out on the earth, and that the earth will be destroyed. The stars come crashing down, and it's set ablaze, and that, which I forgot to take out. I was gonna get some quotes ready for that, but I'll do that for the next segment and the next portion when we come back to share some of that from the sibling oracles and how all that plays out, because that's also very important to understand, because a lot of people, and I used to think this way myself, is that the earth and the heavens weren't destroyed until after the millennial reign. But when you study the end time narratives, all the apocalyptic manuscripts, and even what we are shown in Revelation, that it speaks about there's a new heaven and a new earth before New Jerusalem comes down out of the heavens. And so, and the study for me of the Revelation of St. John the Theologian clarifies specifically that the earth becoming, flat like a tabletop and made pure and virgin white and freed of sin and re-established for what is the coming of the bridegroom, that it in my mind clarifies that it is at the end of this second world age that the earth is destroyed in fervent heat, and that what we see in 2 Peter as the destruction of the second world age, that this plays out before Christ sets foot upon the renewed earth and taking the judgment seat and sitting upon the throne, that then we have the harvest and the determination of who would be worthy to be numbered amongst the righteous, amongst the elect, and to enter into the millennial reign. But as far as, the 144,000, I've not seen, anywhere, as much of the scriptures as I've read and I've studied, I've not seen a clear definition as to who these individuals are, other than, I know it's a number from each of the 12 tribes, that they're virgins, but, what does that exactly mean? Were they never born into the world, or were they like Elijah? He was one that never, or one of the prophets, either Enoch or Elijah, one of them was never married, and well, no, it was not an Enoch, but so I don't know exactly how, but I don't have a clear answer as to that. And a lot of people have asked me that, but I've not seen it defined really precisely, really clearly in the scriptures. So I don't.
They're
really
clearly alive, because they're on the earth here right before the destroying angels are sent out. It says that these are the ones that were given to hurt the earth and the sea, but they can't hurt the earth or the sea or the trees until these 144,000 are sealed in their foreheads. So I assume they're alive and on the earth
at that time.
And they're different from the great multitude that's raptured and resurrected and brought before the throne of the Most High. So it seems that they have a mission or a role to play during the wrath of God that's being poured out. Yeah, interesting point. I'm going to go ahead and bring up that passage from the Sibylline Oracles that you were talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So
I love that passage.
Let's see. This is in the Great Commission 2, and this is the second book of the Sibylline Oracles, pages 190 to 338. And we'll just start on page 190. It says, "Woe unto them that are found great with child in that day, and to them that give suck to infant children, and to them that dwell by the sea or the waves. Woe to them that shall behold that day, for a dark mist shall cover the boundless world of the east and west, the south and north." So you see here, the four winds again.
Yeah.
Or the four horns, or the four angels that are on the four quarters of the earth. "And then shall a great river of flaming fire flow from heaven and consume all places, the earth and the great ocean and the gray sea, lakes and rivers and fountains, and merciless Hades and the pole of heaven. But the lights of heaven shall melt together in one, and into a void, desolate shape. For the stars shall all fall from heaven into the sea, and all the souls of men shall gnash their teeth as they burn in the river of brimstone, and the rush of the fire in the blazing plain, and ashes shall cover all things. And then shall all the elements of the world be laid waste, air, earth, sea, light, poles, days, and nights, and no more shall the multitudes of the birds fly in the air, nor swimming creatures any more swim the sea. No ship shall sail with its cargo over the waves. No straight-going oxen shall plow the tilled lands. There shall be no more sound of swift winds, but he shall fuse all things together into one and purge them clean. Now when the immortal angels of the undying God, Barachiel, Ramiel, Uriel, Samiel, and Azael, these names are from Enoch, knowing all the evil deeds that any hath wrought aforetime, then out of the misty darkness they shall bring all the souls of men to judgment unto the seat of God the immortal, the great. For he only is incorruptible, himself the Almighty, who shall be the judge of mortal men. And then unto them of the underworld shall the heavenly one give their souls and spirit and speech, and their bones joined together with all the joints and the flesh and sinews and veins and skins, also over the flesh and hair as before. And the bodies of the dwellers upon earth shall be moved and arise in one day, joined together in immortal fashion and breathing. Then shall the great angel Uriel break the monstrous bars framed of unyielding and unbroken adamant of the brazen gates of Hades, and cast them down straightway, and bring forth to judgment all the sorrowful forms.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah, of the ghosts of the ancient Titans and of the giants, and
Yes.
all whom the flood overtook, and all whom the wave of the sea hath destroyed in the waters, and all whom beasts and creeping things and fowls have feasted on, all these shall he bring to the judgment seat. And again, those whom flesh-devouring fire hath consumed in the flames, them also shall he gather and set before God's seat. And when he shall overcome fate and raise the dead, then shall Adonai Tsebaot, the Lord of hosts, the high thunderer, sit on his heavenly throne, and set up the great pillar. And Christ himself, the undying unto the undying, shall come in the clouds in glory with the pure angels, and shall sit on the seat on the right of the great one, judging the life of the godly and the walk of ungodly men. And Moses also, the great, the friend of the Most High, shall come, clad in flesh, and the great Abraham himself shall come, and Isaac and Jacob and Jesus, or Joshua, Daniel, Eliah, Elijah, Ambakum or Habakkuk, and Jonas, and they whom the Hebrews slew, and all the Hebrews that were with or after Jeremiah shall be judged at the judgment seat, and he shall destroy them that they may receive a due reward and expiate all that they did in their mortal life.
Yeah,
interesting. And then shall all men pass through a blazing river and unquenchable flame, and the righteous shall be saved whole, all of them, but the ungodly shall perish therein unto all ages, even as many as wrought evil aforetime, and committed murders, and all that were privy thereunto, liars, thieves, deceivers, cruel destroyers of houses, gluttons, marriers by stealth, shedders of evil rumors, sorely insolent, lawless, idolaters, and all that forsook the great immortal God and became blasphemers and harmers of the godly, breakers of faith and destroyers of righteous men, and all that look with guileful and shameless double faces, reverend priests and deacons, and judge unjustly, dealing perversely, obeying false rumors, more deadly than leopards and wolves, and very evil, and all that are high-minded and usurers, that heap up in their houses usury out of usury, and injure orphans and widows continually, and they that give alms of unjust gain unto widows and orphans, and they that when they give alms of their own toil reproach them, and they that have forsaken their parents in their old age and not repaid them at all, nor recompensed them for their nurture, and they that have disobeyed and spoken hard words against their parents, they also that have received pledges and denied them, and servants that have turned against their masters, and again they which have defiled their flesh in lasciviousness, and have loosed the girdle of virginity and secret union, and they that make the child in the womb miscarry, that's abortionist,
Yes.
and
Right.
that cast out their offspring against right. Sorcerers also and sorceresses, with these shall the wrath of the heavenly and immortal God bring near unto the pillar all round about which the untiring river of fire shall flow, and all of them shall the undying angels of the immortal everlasting God chastise terribly with flaming scourges, and shall bind them fast from above in fiery chains, bonds unbreakable. And then shall they cast them down in the darkness of night into Gehenna among the beasts of hell, many and frightful, where is darkness without measure. So there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
this is the great and terrible, or the great white throne judgment, but this is clearly a judgment. The fact that they're getting thrown into Gehenna, or I believe more rightly said would be Tartarus,
Yeah.
with all the beasts and everything, I think that would be, this is like the seventh seal, the wrath of the Most High before the
Yes.
great white throne
The
judgment that
millennial.
is
Yeah.
done after the millennium. But I
Uh-huh.
thought it was really interesting that it
Yeah. The
says,
second death.
right? Yeah, exactly. I think that it's interesting they said everyone is going to go through the purging fire, right? So
Right.
that kind of makes it really interesting to compare to what we've read in Revelation 7 with those who are still on the earth but are sealed in their foreheads, because they go through something, right? They
Right.
go
Right.
through something, but they're protected during it. And it said that same thing
Hmm.
in the sibling oracles, that, some people would go through it, but they wouldn't be hurt by it. I thought that was
Right.
interesting. But is that the
Oh, yeah.
passage
That's
you're
absolutely
referring
interesting.
to?
Yes. Yes, it is. And I love that because it's so detailed. And, this is what is considered to be a pagan text. And yet it has the mention of Christ as the Son of God, and also the mention of all the great Israel patriarchs and prophets, and um, it fits right along with what we are studying in this book of Revelation, and fits with all of the other narratives that can be found in the Great Commission 3 on the end time apocalypses. And again, the at the very beginning of this entire scene, and the study that you just read through, you have the stars crashing to the earth and destroying it, causing seas of fire and rivers of fire to flow, and it matches exactly what is in Second Peter as well, with the fervent heat. And so that book also was one that helped me to gain clarity as to the destruction of the earth, and how the opening of the seals was part of that, and the wrath of God being poured out upon the earth was the fulfillment of all of that. And so, yeah, when again, reading these other manuscripts, you gain insight into some of the things that are, I believe, taught wrong, and that are laid out, um, in a way that causes confusion. That I always look to the ancient manuscripts for clarity on what is the riddles contained within the gospel.
Yeah, there's definitely, in my opinion, a lot of these texts, like the Sibylline Oracles and maybe the Revelation of St. John the Theologian, is probably similar to the Targum, which the Aramaic Targum, in its bulk, is an ancient text, and we know that because it's written in a very ancient form of Aramaic. But there
Right.
is within the Aramaic Targum also this more modern Aramaic, and when I say more modern, I'm talking about like 1900 years old instead of the ancient, which is over 2,000 years old. But what you see with the more modern form of Aramaic is that it seems like there's some commentary that's been written into the margins. Just like when we read through books, we we make commentaries. Like my very first Bible that I ever had when I came out of atheism, when it was the first one I ever read, and my book in Revelation, there were scribbles, there were all kinds of notes, and I was just trying to make sense of it, and like, okay, this refers to this chapter, this refers to this chapter. And what you see with the Targum is sometimes you see similar things to that, like, and that the commentary was made after the original manuscript was written, because sometimes in the Torah it's referring to some of the things that Ezekiel prophesied to. So that Moses wasn't referring to the prophecies of Ezekiel. That this was a commentary that was added later on by someone who was studying both that Aramaic translation of the Torah and the book of Ezekiel, and they were putting commentaries. Unfortunately, the translators of the Aramaic Targum didn't differentiate which Aramaic they were translating from. They translated everything and pieced it all together. I think that it's pretty obvious when you come across those commentaries. But anyways, my point is that I feel like this same thing, the Sibylline church, wherever they were, that they had inherited, a version of Revelation, or maybe they inherited the entire the Gospels and Revelation, and had some of the letters from Paul or from Peter or from Timothy, I guess from Paul, and maybe they made their own collaboration of all the things that they could find, and they're trying to make their own timeline, and they put everything together. I think that's kind of similar with the Sibylline oracles. They're putting together as much information as they can find into one little manuscript. But the really cool thing is that 2,000 years ago, they had a lot of manuscripts that we don't have anymore. So they're getting information from letters and from prophecies and from books that we don't even know exist. Or that have been hidden for a very long time. So while books like the Sibylline Oracles I might not take as gospel and some of the things that it says, I definitely think it's highly valuable as a resource in studying the prophecies.
And interesting to read. I mean, and they are said to be like going back to 200 years BC, or some of them, not all of them, because there's like many different manuscripts of the Sibylline oracles that were all compiled and put together, and they go through even a lot of what is the detailed history of the Roman Empire and their rise to power, and it brings out prophecies against some of the emperors that were reigning during those times, but those aren't specific to what is like the second book is. It mentions the end times very clearly, and especially the part that you read, which is why I took most of the entirety of the second book and put it into the Great Commission 3 on the end time apocalypses, because it definitely fits in well there, I believe.
Yeah, it's a really great resource, the Great Commission 3, and all of those series I really enjoy. It's definitely it's a blessing to be able to read through all of those. So yeah, that brings us to the end of Revelation chapter 7. We ended off. We made it through an entire chapter, a whole 17 verses. But in the ending, we see what a very similar theme of what we see in the end of Revelation. That the sunlight will not that the sun will not light on these. They won't hunger anymore. There won't be any heat. And God's going to wipe away all tears from their eyes. Right? So it seems like this parenthetical chapter, as it was referred to earlier, like an interlude, is even what is written here as like a chapter head for chapter 7 of Revelation. You see after the sixth seal that these things happen, and then you see those who are in the heaven around the throne, and you're told a little bit about them, and you're told about their
Yes.
future. And then we kind of go back into it. So going into Revelation 8, we're getting like back into the timeline. So you saw a little glimpse after the sixth seal was opened. You saw two groups of people. Those groups of people will be referenced again throughout Scripture, so it's important. John put them there for a reason so that we would know who they were when they come up again. But now we're getting back into the timeline. When we get into Revelation 8, we see that the seventh seal is opened. So I'm going to take like a 2-minute break, and I'll be right back.
Sure.
If you want to comment on... Yeah, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll keep it going. All right. For those that, and I know that we keep making mention of the Great Commission 3, because it is one of my most favorite manuscripts or compilations that I was able to put together for all of you. But because many of you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and pull up this particular resource and just read the contents of what is in this particular book so that you can consider it. And if you're interested in prophecy and the study of the end time narrative, and if you want to gain more insight into even understanding revelation contained within the Bible, these are the books that are found within it. The first is the Apocalypse of Abraham, the Apocalypse of Moses, the 14th vision of Daniel, the Apocalypse of Elijah, the Hebrew Apocalypse of Elijah, the fourth book of Ezra, the Apocalypse of Sirach, the Sibylline Oracles, Book 2, the Apocalypse of Zephaniah, the Apocalypse of Baruch, the Apocalypse of Thomas, the Apocalypse of Peter, the first and second Apocalypse of James, the Apocalypse of Paul, the Revelation of St. John the Theologian, the 10 signs of the end of the age, the Apocalypse of Samuel, the Apocalypse of Zerubbabel, and the vision of Adamant, which this is 400. The vision of Adamant begins on page 401, and it's quite lengthy. And so I think probably safe to say there's 420 pages of insight and resource contained within this Great Commission 3 that, as I said, is specific to and elaborates upon what we are as the sign of the fig tree extending her tender shoots, and that when you see, the blooming of the fig tree, know that the end is nigh, and that all these things shall be fulfilled. That Christ, when the apostles asked him, what would be the sign of the end of the age and of your return, then he went through that whole list of, the wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places, famines and pestilences. And he warned us to be certain that we are not deceived. All these things are found all throughout these manuscripts. And so when you read them, I believe they give you greater insight and bring you to clarity on the timeline of what he alluded to as the end of the age. And in the Apocalypse of Peter, it says that when the fig tree blooms, that this would be in the time of the end of the world. And those words are used specifically. And so, again, the connection with the fig tree and the end of the age, as was laid out by the Messiah. And so very important to understand, I believe.
Yeah, truth, like Velcro said, I always knew that the gospel was too huge that not only 4 people, and Paul wrote about it, right? That's what Joy likes to say. Joy always refers to when the Messiah came, she likens it to, just some really huge event happening. And imagine all the local newspapers are going to write about it. If a man comes in that's healing people, or that raises from the dead, everyone is going to write about it. Especially if this traveling man comes and he starts healing the people of a town, and then he's like walking on water and raising the dead to life. Everyone is going to write about it. Everyone, everywhere he goes, people are going to write about it, right? Unfortunately, what we saw with the authoritative church coming to power, which we know happened through the Roman Empire, they took authority over the scriptures. They took authority over the church. They claimed, the divine right of kings, as is normal with the elite. And they decided to canonize their own text and to make war against everyone who did not agree with their scripture. And they burned people alive. They burned those newspaper clippings, if you will. They went and they killed so many people, and did their best to hide as much as they could. What we have, has been, the Most High said somewhere in one of the prophecies that he would preserve his word, that he'd preserve his testimony, and he definitely has. I don't make light of the canon that we have. It's a huge blessing what we've received. So many people have been martyred in order to protect even the canonized text that we have now. But I'm not saying anything in the Great Commission or anything is like necessary to understand the testimony of the Messiah, by which we are saved, through the faith that we receive in him from his testimony. But the fact that there are hundreds of other texts that confirm the things that we have in the canon is a blessing that we are the first generation that is able to enjoy. Right. Because it's just in the 1900s that really explored. I mean, I guess since the 1800s, maybe even well before that, there were explorers that were going around throughout the world, throughout the Middle East, and stopping at every little synagogue that they could find, or every monastery that they could find, right? Because all of the churches became monasteries because they were all conquered by the Roman Empire. But in a lot of them, they had these ancient texts that were hidden away and kept secret by the priests or the bishops that were in those monasteries. And what we have in our generation that they didn't have before is the ability to go to all of them because of flights, of the ease of travel, as Daniel foretold would happen, and the increase in knowledge that Daniel foretold would happen with translations. We live in like a modern Tower of Babel period where everyone can speak everyone else's language. And now we have access to all of these texts that were kept in Syriac and Coptic, and Aramaic, and every language that you can find in the Middle East. There were records of the Messiah and his impact in the world and his testimony that was hidden. And those things have now been made available. There were explorers that dedicated their entire lives to going and finding those resources and translating those resources. I mean, there were dozens of missionaries like this that dedicated their lives to doing that. And now all that my dad has dedicated himself to do is to find those, to find the fruits of their labors and to put them together so that, we can have, I guess, what a like modern version of a canonized text, definitely not canon, definitely not saying it's all gospel. Like I said, there is a lot of commentary that you'll find within a lot of these texts, but the fact that we have access to all of those newspaper clippings that were at one point persecuted and hidden away for thousands of years is awesome. And it's really a great blessing. And just to see how they compare to the canon, I mean, just strengthens your faith in the canon.
Absolutely.
And also, I feel like it helps your understanding of it as well.
Yes, I fully agree with you, and it reminds me. We talked about in last night even about how the two brothers that went and found all of the articles about the giants all over, the Americas in the early establishment of the pioneers here in this particular land, and how that all affirmed and proved the Bible, and brought clarity to, what, used to be ridiculed. Giants, there's no giant, that's all fairy tale fantasy. And yet there's been all these skeletons found. And even now in this day and age, there's still skeletons found all over the world of giants, and how they truly were here on the earth before and after the flood. And so, these kind of things also affirm the veracity of what is revealed in the scriptures, even as strange as it seems to appear. And in the same way, all the ancient manuscripts, like newspaper clippings from thousands of years ago, they give us insight into even the early ecclesia, because there was no canon, there was no authorized manuscripts that people, this is okay to read and study and this isn't. They read and studied from everything, and many of the witnesses that were walking with and seeing and witnessing the miracles that Christ was performing, they were sharing their stories. They were sharing the things they had seen, they had witnessed with others that also were coming to know and understand and believe on the Messiah as God incarnate in human flesh. And this was the role, this was the mission that he was, even before he entered into flesh, that he was tasked with this role. And so much to learn, so much to come to understanding about. And we, as those that are blessed to have insight, we're encouraging each other and one another and sharing things with each other, like, oh wow, check this out, or check this out, or read this to gain insight into what is spoken about in Genesis 6 here in this particular manuscript. Or if you want to know more about Revelation, check these books out. Or anything, even the feast days, the book of Enoch. I mean, all so much knowledge, and we're blessed. We are that remote and distant generation,
and that
which is
opening
blessed to have
line
insight.
in Enoch,
Yes,
that
exactly.
this book is for the last generation, that
Right.
sums it up well enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, at least we did make it through one chapter.
Yeah, it was a great show, and
Yeah,
love
I
you
thought
all.
so.
Thank you for all joining in the YouTube live stream, and everyone over here on Freedom Slips. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be able to
Yes.
study with you all. Thank you so much for your love that you've shared in the chat, and everyone for keeping the peace tonight and sharing love and sharing commentary. And prayerfully, we're all growing together, and we can continue this study, God willing, next week.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you again, everybody, for just your kindness and your fellowship, and for all of you encouraging each other and one another. It's a beautiful thing to have a family and others to be able to share and to speak about these things, because so much of the world is unconcerned, has no love of the faith, has no love of our Lord. And that's unfortunate, because salvation and eternal life, eternity is through him, and it's a free gift to all of us. Be blessed all. Good night.
Good night.
Love you. Good night.
Thank you everybody for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.